The three lion cubs tumbled over each other in a spectacular cascade of golden fur and flailing paws, landing in a heap while Mabel, the human wildlife specialist, doubled over, laughing so hard she had to grab the observation railing. Above her, Threxus, the massive reptilian crane with bronze scales and 4 arms, all 12 of his compound eyes widening in absolute horror, nearly dropped his data tablet over the edge of the platform. "By the 7 moons!" Threxus hissed, his scales shifting from bronze to pale yellow as he clutched the railing with all 4 hands. "The predator cubs are malfunctioning. Human Mabel, they're experiencing catastrophic motor system failure." Mabel wiped tears from her eyes, still chuckling as she watched the cubs disentangle themselves and immediately try again, this time with even less success. The smallest one face planted directly into a patch of synthetic grass.
Help you, Threxus. You just need to tell us.
"They're fine, Threxus. They're just trying to walk on 2 legs like me." "Like you?" Yallara, the insectoid Vex commander, with her chitinous blue-black exoskeleton gleaming under the dome's artificial sunlight, scrambled down from her upper observation post on all 6 legs, her mandibles clicking in rapid distress. "Why would prey hunters attempt to mimic bipedal locomotion? This is neurologically impossible for their species." "They're cubs," Mabel said, grinning as the middle-sized cub managed to wobble upright for exactly 2 seconds before its hind legs gave out and it crashed sideways into its sibling. "They're playing. Haven't you ever seen babies imitate adults?" Nox, the crystalline Quellen with his translucent geometric body refracting rainbow light across the platform, floated closer, his purple internal facets pulsing with concern. "Human Mabel, this behavior contradicts all documented feline development patterns. Cubs at 8 weeks should be perfecting quadrupedal coordination, not attempting biomechanically inappropriate postures." The largest cub, apparently the ringleader of this disaster, pushed itself up on trembling hind legs, front paws tucked against its chest like tiny fists. It took one wobbly step forward, eyes locked on Mabel with intense concentration. Then its back legs crossed. It spun in a half circle and collapsed in a heap of golden fluff and indignant squeaking. Mabel lost it completely, laughing so hard she had to sit down on the platform floor, while all 3 alien observers stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "Human Mabel," Threxus said, his bronze scales now completely pale, 2 of his 4 arms gesturing frantically at the cubs while the other 2 worked his tablet. "I must file an emergency medical report. The cubs are clearly suffering from a contagious neurological disorder that causes catastrophic balance dysfunction. Worse, they appear to be deliberately repeating the behavior that causes injury." "They're not injured," Mabel gasped between laughs, watching the smallest cub try to stand up by bracing against its sibling, which immediately caused both of them to topple over. "They're just being silly." "Silly?" Yalara's mandibles spread wide in shock, her 6 legs clicking against the metal platform. "Human Mabel, silliness is not a recognized survival behavior. These cubs are demonstrating suicidal imitation patterns." The middle cub, not to be outdone by its siblings' spectacular failures, attempted a standing position while simultaneously trying to roar. The result was a high-pitched squeak combined with immediate loss of balance, sending the cub rolling backward like a furry boulder. It crashed into a synthetic rock, bounced off, and lay there on its back with all 4 paws in the air, looking confused about how it got there. Nox's crystalline body flickered through several colors, his internal facets pulsing red with alarm. "This is unprecedented. I am accessing all known literature on predator cub development." His body brightened as he processed data, geometric patterns shifting inside his translucent form. "There are 0 documented cases of feline cubs attempting sustained bipedal locomotion at this developmental stage. Human Mabel, are you certain this is normal?" "Of course it's normal," Mabel said, finally getting her laughter under control and standing up. She walked to the edge of the
Just a
platform,
beautiful,
looking
beautiful
down at
little
the
cub
cubs who were
here.
now all staring up at her with wide golden eyes. "Watch this." She began walking along the platform railing, exaggerating her steps. Below, all three cubs immediately scrambled to their feet and tried to copy her gait. The largest managed 3 steps before its back legs gave out. The middle one got tangled in its own paws and rolled sideways. The smallest one just sat down and chirped in frustration. "Make it stop!" Threxus shrieked, all 4 of his arms flailing, his bronze scales now flashing white with panic. "Human Mabel, you are encouraging the neurological disorder. The cubs are now attempting synchronized failure." "They think she's their mother," Yalara breathed, her mandibles clicking softly as her chitinous exoskeleton rippled with what might have been horror. "The cubs have imprinted on the human. They believe they are supposed to be bipedal because she is bipedal." "That's actually pretty accurate," Mabel said, grinning as she climbed down the platform ladder to ground level. The moment her feet touched the artificial grass, all 3 cubs charged at her in a tumbling mass of fur, squeaking and chirping. Nox floated down rapidly, his crystalline body pulsing with urgent, purple light. "Human Mabel, if the cubs have imprinted on you as a parental figure, they will continue attempting to mimic your locomotion indefinitely. This could result in permanent developmental abnormalities." "Or," Mabel said, scooping up the smallest cub who immediately started chewing on her finger, "they'll figure out pretty quickly that 4 legs works better for them and give up on their own." The cub in her arms squeaked and tried to stand on its hind legs while she held it, front paws reaching for her face. "Unacceptable!" Threxus stomped down the ladder, his 4 arms moving in frantic patterns. "I am initiating Emergency Protocol 34B, maternal figure replacement. We must introduce a proper quadrupedal role model immediately." He jabbed at his tablet with 2 hands, while gesturing dramatically with the other 2. "I am requisitioning an adult lion from the Terran Conservation Fleet." "You can't just requisition a lion, Threxus," Mabel said, setting the small cub down. It immediately tried to stand on 2 legs again, wobbled, and sat down hard on its rear end with an indignant chirp. "Besides, I told the conservation fleet I'd raise these 3 until they're ready for habitat reintroduction." "But you are teaching them to be human." Yalara's 6 legs carried her in rapid circles around Mabel and the cubs, her blue-black exoskeleton catching the light. "This is the most dangerous form of cross-species contamination I have encountered in 23 years of xenobiology research." The middle cub, apparently inspired by Yalara's agitation, tried to walk in a circle while on its hind legs. It managed a quarter turn before toppling over and rolling into the largest cub, who was attempting a standing position. Both cubs went down in a tangle of paws and tails, squeaking loudly. Mabel burst out laughing again, while Nox's crystalline body blazed bright red. "This is a level 9 developmental crisis. Human Mabel, do you not understand the severity? These cubs will grow into 190-kilogram apex predators who believe they should be bipedal." "No, they won't," Mabel said, wiping her eyes. "Look, watch them when I'm not around." She pulled out her communication device and brought up yesterday's footage. On the small screen, the 3 cubs moved around the habitat with perfect quadrupedal coordination, pouncing on toys, climbing rocks, and wrestling with appropriate feline grace. Threxus leaned in with all 12 of his compound eyes focused on the screen, his bronze scales slowly returning to normal color. "They are moving correctly. All locomotive functions are appropriate for their age." "Right," Mabel said. "They only try the 2-leg thing when I'm here because they're playing. When I'm gone, they're perfectly normal cubs." "But why?" Yalara's mandibles clicked in confusion as she studied the screen with her multifaceted eyes. "Why would they deliberately adopt dysfunctional movement patterns as play behavior?" "Because they're babies," Mabel said simply.
Sleepyheads.
"And babies everywhere, human, lion, probably even Crin and Vex, copy their parents even when it doesn't make sense. It's how they bond. It's how they learn. The smallest cub, having observed this conversation for exactly as long as its attention span allowed, decided to try standing up one more time. It braced its front paws against Mabel's leg, pushed itself upright, and for one glorious moment stood on its hind legs at full height. Then it sneezed, lost its balance, and collapsed backward onto the grass. Nox's crystalline body cycled through confused colors, his geometric facets reorganizing as he processed this information. You are saying this catastrophic motor dysfunction is actually a social bonding behavior? Yep, Mabel said, picking up the sneezing cub and holding it against her chest. It immediately started purring, a sound that made Threxus's scales ripple with pleasure, despite his obvious confusion. This is madness, Yalara said, but her mandibles had stopped clicking in distress. Human cubs must be extraordinarily patient if this is standard parenting behavior. Oh, human babies do the same thing, Mabel said. They watch us walk and try to copy it months before they're physically ready. They fall down constantly. It takes them about a year to get good at it. A year? Threxus's forearms shot up in synchronized horror. Human cubs are attempting biomechanically complex maneuvers for an entire year before achieving competency? Sometimes longer, Mabel said cheerfully. The largest cub, refusing to be ignored, tried once more to stand on two legs. This time it made it 3 full seconds before its legs crossed, and it sat down hard, looking absolutely baffled about how physics worked. Yalara sat back on her 6 legs, her chitinous exoskeleton relaxing slightly. Human Mabel, are you telling me that incompetence is a feature of human development, not a malfunction? Pretty much, Mabel said. Human babies are completely helpless for months. They can't walk, can't talk, can't feed themselves, can't do anything except cry and make messes. And even when they start trying to do stuff, they're terrible at it for a really long time. Nox floated in a slow circle, his crystalline body pulsing with thoughtful amber light. This explains much about human behavior. You are a species that evolved to tolerate extended periods of catastrophic failure in your young.
Temporal causality has
I
been
guess so, Mabel said,
fundamentally
watching the
flawed
middle
from the
cub try to
beginning.
walk backward on 2 legs, which ended exactly as well as could be expected. We think it's cute. You think failure is cute? Threxus's scales flashed through every color in the spectrum. Human Mabel, this is the most disturbing parenting strategy I have encountered in all my years of xenobiological research. The 3 cubs, apparently tired of falling down, converged on Mabel in a coordinated tumble of golden fur. They climbed over her legs, chirping and squeaking, trying to get her attention by batting at her hands with oversized paws. She sat down on the grass and let them crawl all over her, their purring audible even from the observation platform. Look at that, Mabel said softly, scratching behind the smallest cub's ears, while the other 2 wrestled on her lap. They're not trying to walk like me anymore. They just wanted to play and get my attention. Mission accomplished. Yalara moved closer on her 6 legs, her mandibles working thoughtfully. The cubs ceased the imitation behavior once they achieved their actual goal. Your focused attention? That's usually how it works with babies, Mabel said. The largest cub yawned, showing tiny sharp teeth, and promptly fell asleep draped across her knee. They don't really want to be like you. They just want you to notice them and love them. Nox's crystalline body glowed soft blue as he floated down to cub level, extending one geometric facet toward the sleeping cub. This is profoundly inefficient. Human cubs and these feline cubs could achieve attention through simple vocalization, rather than self-injurious motor attempts. But where's the fun in that? Mabel asked, grinning as the middle cub tried to catch its own tail and fell over sideways, still purring. Threxus descended from the platform, moving more carefully now, his bronze scales normalized, and all four arms tucked against his body. Human Mabel, I believe I am beginning to understand why humans are considered the most dangerous species in the galactic community. Because we think babies falling down is funny? Mabel asked. Because you have evolved to find catastrophic failure endearing, Threxus said, his compound eyes fixed on the sleeping cubs. This means humans will tolerate and even encourage failure in developing organisms, which allows for extended learning periods
It
and
allows them to
increased
form an
behavioral
emotional
flexibility.
bond.
You do not punish unsuccessful attempts. You celebrate them. Huh, Mabel said. I never thought about it that way. Yulara's chitinous exoskeleton clicked softly
Our current
as she settled
assessment
onto
is
the
that
grass
probability
nearby,
of success
all
remains
6 legs
critically low.
folded beneath her. This explains human innovation rates. You are not afraid of failure because you were raised to believe failure is temporary and amusing. Also, Knox added, his crystalline body brightening. This explains human pack-bonding behavior across species lines. You do not require competence for affection. These cubs are objectively terrible at being bipedal, yet you find them more endearing because of their failures, not despite them. The smallest cub woke up, looked at Threxus's 4 arms, and immediately tried to stand up on 2 legs to match his height. It lasted 1 second before tumbling into Mabel's lap, where it curled up and went back to sleep, apparently satisfied with its effort. Threxus made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a wheeze, his scales rippling with colors none of them had seen before. That cub just attempted to match my size and build through postural adjustment alone. That is the most optimistic display of biomechanical ignorance I have ever witnessed.
This is our end.
Welcome to raising babies, Mabel said, gently stroking the sleeping cub's fur. Everything is illogical. Nothing makes sense, and somehow they all survive to adulthood anyway. Yulara's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. Human Mabel, I am beginning to understand why the galactic community finds humans so disturbing. You have weaponized tolerance for chaos. We call it patience, Mabel said, but she was grinning. The middle cub, not wanting to be left out of the sleeping pile, tried one last time to walk on 2 legs toward Mabel. It wobbled, overcorrected, spun in a complete circle, and face planted directly into Knox's crystalline body. The impact made a soft bonging sound. The cub squeaked in surprise, bounced off, landed on its back, and fell asleep instantly. All 4 observers, 3 aliens and 1 human, stared at the unconscious cub for a long moment. That cub just knocked itself out trying to walk like you, Knox said, his geometric facets pulsing with shocked orange light. Yeah, Mabel said, carefully picking up the sleeping cub and adding it to the pile in her lap. Like I said, babies. Threxus sat down heavily on the grass, all 4 arms spread out in defeat. I am going to need so much documentation for this report. The Xenobiological Ethics Committee will never believe any of this happened. I have video footage, Yulara offered, her mandibles clicking with amusement. Please send me all of it, Threxus said weakly. I will need evidence that humans genuinely consider repeated motor failure to be an acceptable parenting strategy. The largest cub woke up just long enough to try standing on 2 legs one more time while still mostly asleep. It swayed dangerously, like a furry tower about to collapse, then simply fell sideways and continued sleeping in its new horizontal position. Mabel looked up at the 3 alien observers and smiled. Any questions about human parenting techniques? Thousands, Knox said, his crystalline body cycling through confused colors. But I am no longer certain I want answers to any of them. Smart choice, Mabel said, adjusting the 3 sleeping cubs into more comfortable positions across her lap. The smallest one yawned, briefly opened one eye, saw Mabel smiling down at it, and immediately tried to stand up on wobbling hind legs, even while 80% asleep. It lasted half a second before collapsing back into sleep. "I give up," Threxus announced to the dome at large, his bronze scales flashing white again. "I officially give up trying to understand humans. This entire species operates on principles that violate every known biological imperative for survival." "And yet," Ylara said thoughtfully, her chitinous exoskeleton gleaming as she watched the sleeping cubs, "humans have successfully established colonies on 91 worlds and maintain peaceful diplomatic relationships with 214 species. Perhaps tolerance for chaos is a more viable evolutionary strategy than we assumed." "Or," Nox suggested, his geometric facets pulsing with purple light, "humans are simply very good at making failure look adorable until everyone else stops questioning their methods." Mabel looked down at the 3 sleeping cubs, sprawled across her lap in a tangle of golden fur and oversized paws, still, occasionally twitching as they dreamed about walking on 2 legs. She scratched behind the smallest one's ears, and even in sleep, it started purring. "Yeah," she said softly, smiling. "That's exactly what we do." Above them, through the transparent dome, the artificial sun continued its programmed arc across the habitat sky. On the observation platform, 3 alien researchers stood in contemplative silence, watching a human sit calmly in the grass while surrounded by apex predator cubs who thought falling down was a great way to spend an afternoon. "I need a drink," Threxus finally said, his 4 arms hanging limply at his sides. "A very strong drink. Or possibly 12. "Agreed," Ylara said, her mandibles clicking in exhausted amusement. "I will join you," Nox added, his crystalline body dimming slightly. "Though I doubt any amount of Quellen neural suppressant will erase the image of those cubs attempting bipedal locomotion." They turned toward the exit, but Threxus paused, looking back at Mabel and the sleeping cubs one more time. His bronze scales rippled through several contemplative colors before settling on a warm copper tone. "Human Mabel," he called out, his compound eyes focusing on her. "Those cubs are going to grow up thinking they're human, aren't they?" "Nah," Mabel said, gently repositioning a sleeping cub that was starting to slide off her lap. "They're going to grow up thinking humans are weird, but fun. There's a difference." "I am not certain that distinction makes this situation less concerning," Threxus said. "Probably not," Mabel agreed cheerfully. The 3 alien researchers exchanged glances, a reptilian with 4 arms and bronze scales, an insectoid with 6 legs and chitinous armor, and a crystalline being that floated and changed colors. Then, in rare unanimous agreement, they all turned and headed for the exit together. Behind them, Mabel sat in the artificial sunlight with 3 lion cubs sleeping peacefully in her lap, occasionally twitching and pawing at the air as they dreamed of the day when they too would master the mysterious art of walking on 2 legs. It was going to be a long project, but Mabel was human, which meant she had evolved specifically to find this kind of chaos absolutely delightful. The smallest cub sneezed in its sleep, rolled over, and fell off Mabel's lap onto the grass. It woke up, looked confused for exactly 2 seconds, saw Mabel laughing, tried to stand on 2 legs to see what was so funny, fell over again, and went back to sleep, right where it landed. "Best job ever," Mabel said to no one in particular, settling in to wait for the cubs to wake up so they could do this all over again.